Hello, students, and welcome to your online course orientation. I am your professor, Professor McElwee. I prefer to be called Professor McElwee and not by my first name. So when you're sending emails, just remember to address me as Professor McElwee. I want to take this time to officially welcome you to the course. I'm looking forward to a great semester working with all of you. Here's a little about me. I attended Grand Valley State University for both my undergraduate and graduate degrees. While I was in grad school, I began teaching some courses for Grand Valley State University in their grad program in the College of Education. I also have teaching experience teaching elementary school for 5 years, high school for 1 year, and I've been teaching in higher education since 2008. Altogether, I have about 16 years of teaching experience under my belt. You can see there some of the courses that I've taught while at GRCC. I've been at GRCC for about 10 years. So if you have any questions about the course, but even outside of the course, you can always ask me. I've been around for quite a while and know a lot of different things about the college. I want to talk a little bit about what a fully online class means for you, the student. What it means is that we will not be meeting face to face at all during the semester. All the work that you complete will be submitted through Blackboard. All of the instruction you receive will be also through Blackboard, through pre-recorded lectures, some videos, and so on and so forth. So there is not one point in the semester that we will ever meet face to face. We will be doing some Zoom meetings, so you'll have an opportunity to kind of get to know everyone that way. Along with an online course, specifically since we are never meeting face to face, there are some expectations that you need to adhere to in order to be successful. One of those things is making sure that you check Blackboard and your email every day. The way that I am going to communicate with you, the student, is through your GRCC email. And I ask in return that you use your GRCC email to communicate with me. Often emails from outside email addresses get lost or don't get delivered to me. So make sure that you are using your GRCC email to communicate. It's also important that you check your grades, probably if not daily, every other day, just to make sure that you're on track, to make sure that there hasn't been an error or anything like that. The sooner you recognize that stuff and point it out to me, the sooner we can work together to come up with a resolution. It's also important that you adhere to deadlines. All of the work for this course will be due Fridays at noon. You will need to have your work completed by that time. If it is late, so if you submit it at 12:01, that is considered late work and it will not be accepted. Making sure that you adhere to deadlines is half the battle in specifically this online course that you're taking. I would recommend also making a schedule to get your work completed. It's easy in an online course to wait until the last minute to do things. So making a schedule so that you're working on a little bit each day is definitely highly recommended. It's also important that you read all the materials that are provided for you. You'll notice in the Blackboard tutorial after this orientation that everything is organized in a weekly folder. Everything placed in that folder is for you to review, to read, to look at, to watch, to help you be successful with the assignments for that week. So it is highly important that you read everything, look at everything in those weekly folders. You should also review your assignments for the next week on Friday afternoons and reach out for help if needed. Again, your work wouldn't be due until the following Friday. But again, I have a 48-hour response time for emails. So if you email me Thursday, you might not get a response in time for your work to be submitted. So it is important to plan ahead. Be open to meeting with your professor. If you do have a question, you can sign up for office hours so that you can have a discussion with your instructor. We are here to help you be successful, to answer questions, to assist you if you're struggling. So definitely don't look at your professor as someone you don't have access to. Please be open to communicating with them often. Do not wait until the last minute to ask for help or complete assignments. Like I said earlier, um, if you need to speak to me, you need to make sure that you're planning ahead so that you have enough time to get that meeting in order to complete the assignment. Do not wait until the last minute. Also, do not wait until the last minute to submit your work. Technology is not always 100% reliable. If you wait until 11:58 to turn your work in and there's something wrong and it's late, that is still going to be considered late and you will not get credit for it. So do not wait until the last minute. Use your resources. You guys have so many resources available to you, not only in the weekly folders, but through the Language Arts Lab, which you can read about in your course syllabus. They are there to help you. You can Google things. That is, the internet is a great resource if you're struggling with something and you can't necessarily get in touch with me, but you have a ton of resources available to you. Make sure that you're using them. Another expectation is that you purchase all of the required course materials. If in some instances you might be able to rent them, that's fine too. But it is important that you have all the required course materials. Just because it's an online class doesn't mean we won't be using those materials. One thing that is really important I have found in online teaching is you need to be kind to each other and you need to be kind to your professor. I understand that sometimes things can get frustrating, but tone can often be misconstrued in an online environment. So you want to make sure that you're being kind. I always like to think of the phrase that you catch more flies with honey. So being nice to each other, being nice to your professor is a good way to be successful in the course. Lastly, if you are trying to correspond with me, if you're sending me an email, make sure you include your course name and number in the email. That will help me to assist you quicker. I am teaching 7 courses, 7 or 8 courses, and so sometimes I can't remember which class every single student is in. If you provide your course name and number in an email, it will help me to respond to you quicker. Let's talk a little bit about how to contact your professor. The first question I want you to ask yourself is, do I really need to contact my professor? There are some things that you can do first before reaching out. The first thing is, have I checked the syllabus? If you have a question about a policy, the syllabus is the place for you to go to get that answer. You also have 20 to 25 other classmates in your class that you can check with as well if you have a question. Maybe they've had the same question and it's already been answered. So don't be afraid to reach out to your classmates for help. And then lastly, have you reviewed the assignment sheet and the weekly materials? After you've looked at the assignment sheet and you've reviewed all the weekly materials, then you can reach out to your professor to ask a question. But you do have other things in place that you can do before that. Some other ways to contact me, my office hours. I have a link so that you can schedule time to meet with me during my office hours. That is completely fine. What I find is a lot of folks schedule appointments and don't show up. So I'm asking that if you do schedule an appointment, you show up, or you let me know if you cannot make it. Your time is valuable just as my time is valuable. So it is important that you show up to those meetings that you schedule. You will also need to schedule those meetings 24 hours in advance. So that is again why I say you need to be looking at your assignments and figuring out what areas you need help in ahead of time so that you can get those scheduled. You'll notice on the office hour link that the meetings are set for 15-minute increments. Sometimes we might need longer than that. Don't be afraid to schedule 2 times back to back if you feel like you need longer than 15 minutes for the meeting. That is completely fine. Another way to contact me is via email. Expect a 48-hour response time if you are sending me an email. So that is 2 days. And then also there's a phone number listed in the syllabus that you can call. If I'm available, I will answer that phone call. If not, please make sure to leave your name and a callback number. So often folks will call and I will have no idea who they are or how to to reach them back. So make sure that when you leave a message, if you have to, you're leaving a complete message with all the details needed for me to return your phone call. This semester, we are going to be having optional Zoom workshops. You will see on Blackboard a list of dates and times and topics so that you can decide which workshop you might want to attend if you're struggling with something specific in your course. So be on the lookout for that in Blackboard. I will also focus on that in the Blackboard tutorial. How to format and submit your work. This is a huge aspect of this class. All of your work needs to be submitted as a Microsoft Word document or a PDF. If you don't know how to do that, there's a tutorial on the announcements page that you can look at that focuses on submitting your work. If your work is not submitted this way, it is going to result in a 0. This is such an easy way to get behind at the beginning of the course. If you're not submitting your work properly, make sure that it is a Microsoft Word document or PDF. Now, there are a couple exceptions to that. I hate to even mention it, but if you're posting on the discussion board, you do not need to submit it as a Microsoft Word document or PDF. You can if you want to just keep it consistent, but the discussion board is one exception to that rule. The other exception is if the professor tells you to submit this assignment in a different format ahead of time. So you might be doing a presentation that I'll ask you to submit using PowerPoint or Google Slides. I will always communicate that to you. Otherwise, the rule of thumb is submitted as a Microsoft Word document or PDF. I do not have access to Pages. I can't open those files. I can open Microsoft Word and PDF. So make sure that work is submitted that way. Like I mentioned, due dates, all of your work is due Friday at 12 p.m. noon. That is afternoon, not midnight, 12 p.m. noon. And late work is not accepted under any circumstances. So work submitted after 12, that means if it's submitted at 12:01, it is considered late. Make sure that you're getting your work in ahead of the deadlines. I want to talk a little bit about plagiarism as well. In writing courses specifically, this is something that comes up. So there are a few types of plagiarism. There is direct plagiarism, where you just copy and paste something from another source and turn it in as your own. That's a no-no. There's also self-plagiarism. So if you are submitting work that you've already submitted, that is also a no-no. You cannot do that. Even though you wrote it the first time, it cannot be submitted more than once for a grade. Even if you are taking the course a second time, that does not matter. You cannot submit work that you've already submitted anywhere else. There is mosaic plagiarism, and that is just kind of, cutting and pasting little phrases from different sources and putting it in your own work. That is very tempting. Again, a big no-no. And then there is accidental plagiarism. Sometimes we forget to cite sources, or, we just don't know that we're doing it. Again, that is a no-no. My rule of thumb for plagiarism is the first time you get a 0 on the assignment. The second time, some action will be taken with our student behavior specialist. So make sure you're not plagiarizing. Typically, everything will be submitted through a plagiarism checker so that you can see if you're doing it or not. Students often ask me, like, how soon will our work be graded? All work will be graded by Thursday of the following week. So if you submit your work on Friday, you can expect to see a grade by the next Thursday. Typically, it will be a little bit sooner than that, but that is the expectation. If it's a bigger assignment, so if it's a research paper or a big project, it might take a little bit longer than that to get it completed. And here are some tips for success. We are going to have Zoom meeting workshops. I would suggest attending them or at least watching the recording. I will post the recording for all those sessions as well. So if folks attend, you can expect a recording that I would suggest that you watch. Questions. If you have any questions about the course or assignments, ask them. There is no such thing as a stupid question. All your questions are important and will be answered. I reiterate again, resources. Use your resources. There are so many resources out there for you. Due dates, make sure you are adhering to them, turning things in on time. Make sure you're following all the directions that are given to you in the weekly folders. And then lastly, don't procrastinate. Get your work done ahead of time to ensure that you can submit it before the deadline. And that concludes this portion of the orientation. There is going to be a Blackboard tutorial posted below this orientation, so make sure you also watch that if you are not used to using Blackboard. Thanks for attending, and I am looking forward to a great semester.